Hi, I'm Ollie Mitchell and this tutorial is going to show you some more things that you can do with audio in QLab. The first thing I'm going to talk about is sound cards with multiple outputs. Go into the settings by clicking the cog in the corner and go into the audio tab. Now up until now we've been using our built-in output to play sound effects. This means that it's been playing from the built-in speakers, or if we plug in an audio jack cable it would play from there. That's fine, but in an ideal world you'd have an external sound card plugged into your computer. This is preferable for a few reasons. Firstly, as long as it's a good quality sound card, it should give you a better quality, more reliable sound. Also, it will avoid any system sounds from playing over your sound system, as they will still come from the internal speakers, which you can mute. You can have up to 8 audio output devices, which you can set in these drop-down boxes here. So if I set Audio Patch 2 to be my sound card, I now have 2 different outputs that I can choose from for my sound effects. So now if we go back to the main window and drag in an audio file, when you then go to Device and Levels, you'll see here in the Audio Output patch there are 2 options. See what happens to the faders when I choose between my sound card and the built-in output. There are only 2 yellow faders on built-in output, but when I switch to my sound card there are 4. This is because my built-in output is stereo and has 2 channels, but my sound card has 4 outputs. If you had a sound card with even more outputs, then more faders would be yellow. Let's go into the settings again and have a look at what will come out of each channel. This here is the audio matrix. Here you can set which inputs play from which outputs. With a Pro Audio license, you have a maximum of 48 outputs and 24 inputs. The default setting is that the first 24 inputs are mapped to the first 24 outputs. Each 0 in these boxes represents a routing. So with my 4-channel sound card, the first 4 inputs will play out of the first 4 outputs. But most audio tracks are stereo, which means they only have 2 inputs. So if I play a stereo track, it will only come out of the first 2 channels. Left will come from the first channel, and right will come out of the second channel. Maybe I have those first 2 channels plugged into my front of house system, and the second 2 channels plugged into foldback on the stage. So I want left and right to come from channels 3 and 4 as well. So all you need to do is put a 0 in these boxes too. And then I'll remove these zeros, since we only have stereo tracks, nothing will be coming through on inputs 3 and 4. Now, left will play out of 1 and 3, and right will play out of 2 and 4. Maybe we actually want the foldback channels to be a bit quieter than the main front of house mix. In that case we have 2 options. We could turn down these faders. This would change the default level for all new cues. However, perhaps a better option is to change these zeros to -10. This means that all audio routed through here will be at -10 decibels when it's played. We can also gang the faders. This means that you can link any number of faders to each other. So let's say we want our front of house faders to be linked and our foldback faders to be linked. Click Assign Gangs. Now type an A here and here, and a B here and here. That will link these 2 faders together and these 2 faders together. If we come out of Assign Gangs, you'll see that these have now been color-coded. If I move one fader, they will both move. Now let's go back to the main window. I need to drag the audio file in again. That's because the settings that we created are only for new cues, so the existing cues won't be affected. I now need to set the sound card as my output device. Now if I play this track, you'll see that it comes out of all 4 outputs. But it is quieter in 3 and 4 than it is in 1 and 2. The ganging is also effective here. If you scroll down, you'll see that you also have an audio matrix here. This allows you to make changes on a cue by cue basis if you want to change anything for just one cue. The next thing I'm going to talk about is a way to automate the volume of your music. One way is obviously to use fade cues, but if you know that your track's volume will need to change in exactly the same place every time, there's a better way that avoids clogging up your cue list with fades. Let's put in an audio cue. Maybe we just want the intro to play loudly and then we want it to fade down to a lower level. Go to the time and loops to bring up the waveform, and now click this button to bring up the volume automation. Now you can just click on it to adjust the levels. Now we've created a curve where the volume will decrease at the beginning and then stay at a pretty rough -18 decibels the rest of the way. Let's try playing and see if it works. You can hear it fading down and then we'll stay at that level. Now I'm going to show you how audio effects work. Let's drag in a new audio file to the list. Before we do anything, let's just have a quick listen. Now we're going to go into the Audio Effects tab. There are a number of effects available to you which you can see here. In this tutorial I'll just show you one, but you can play around with the others to see what you can achieve. Let's add the graphic EQ effect. I won't spend too much time explaining what an EQ does. There's plenty of information online if you're not sure and want to read up about it. But essentially it lets you increase or decrease the level of certain frequencies within your sound. I'll show you an example. First I'm going to change it to 10 bands, as I don't need 31 bands of control. Now let's decrease some of the bass frequencies so we're only left with the top end. Now if I play my audio track, you'll hear that it sounds completely different. This is a great effect to make music sound like it's coming from a radio, as typically a radio will not produce the bass frequencies as well as your sound system will. Now let's have another play. I'm going to reverse this now and increase all of the bass and decrease some of the high end. Now if I play this, it sounds completely different. You can only hear the bass parts of the music, almost like you're standing outside a nightclub or in the room next door to loud music. You can also use fade cues with audio effects. This allows you to change the level of an effect over time. Let's say we want it to sound like we're outside a club and then we walk inside. Let's drag in a fade cue and then assign the audio cue to it. Now we go into the Audio Effects tab and click Edit on the effect. Here we want to bring the top end back up again. But we'll still keep the bass boosted as it would be very prominent in a club. Now tick the effect so that the fade knows it's meant to be fading the effect. Now if we play our track, we're outside of a club, and then when it's time to go inside, we execute our fade, and now it sounds like we've stepped inside. That's the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.